Hi. I'd like to do a video about how being a customer service associate, probably anywhere, but especially where I work, while having a service dog, is shitty. So, after we got all the paperwork from my doctor and hashed out all the details of when he'd start and where he would be able to go in the store and where he would not, I was given a very firm warning by my manager that if Wilson became too much of a distraction for customers or staff, that he would no longer be allowed to work with me based on that. I was given no details on what that entailed, like what merited too much of a distraction, and essentially had all that liability put on myself, which I soon found out is a really stressful situation because I live in a very busy town, and I work at a very busy pharmacy. It is on the corner of the main street and the street that leads onto campus, which is also lined by frat houses. So we frequently have drunk customers, lots of tourist activity. It's very busy, and there's also a very large homeless community, the kind that literally sits outside of businesses and harasses people to get money and then immediately goes inside and buys beer. So I have no real sympathy for them. But that's my clientele. Drunk college kids, tired college kids, homeless people, and tourists. And that would be fine if their reactions to Wilson in my place of business were not essentially rested on my shoulders. It would be fine if, when a bad interaction with the public does occur, I weren't left to fend completely for myself. Example. Today we got really busy. Or I guess yesterday we got really busy. I was at Register 1, my associate was at Register 2, our manager was helping a gentleman at the kiosk between the registers and the photo lab. The man's wife came in. And at the same time, I was made to go from Register 1 across to Photo Lab to help a customer get her photo order. When I did this, Wilson tried to follow me. I made him stop behind Register 2. I had him do a standing wait. The man's wife saw Wilson, steps behind the counter, dropped to her knees, and started reaching for him and cooing at him and calling him. And of course he takes a step towards her because he's friendly. I tell him to stop, he does. But she won't stop talking to him, even as I ask her, please stop. Please don't do that. He's working. And I actually have to step away from my customer, who I'm helping, to get Wilson and bring him behind the photo register and behind me so that she can no longer reach him. And she immediately gets up and starts going on about, well, why would he be there if you didn't want people to interact with him? Why would he be somewhere where the public could see him if you don't want him touched or talked to or this or that or the other? And I immediately go, ma'am, he was waiting behind the registers for me to come back to my register. And she's like, that's behind the registers? Yes, that's behind the counter. Literally, you stepped behind the counter to interact with a strange dog. Yes, that's what happened. All the while, my manager's standing there talking to her husband and looking back and forth between us. And the lady continues to ask, what's he doing there then? And I'm like, he's a service dog. And she's like, oh, well, does he help customers when they need it? No, ma'am, he's my service dog. Why? And I don't know if people understand how rude it is to do that when someone tells you they have a insert medical device here. But it's essentially the same as asking, what's wrong with you? Only masking it under the guise of, I don't know, it's not really a mask, it's like painting a doorknob a different color. It's still a doorknob. And my manager looks over, and I'm like, I don't have a choice but to continue answering her questions because I'm not allowed to be rude to my customers ever. And I'm like, he's a medical alert service dog. He keeps me alive. And that tends to be my blanket answer when people ask me. Sometimes if people are genuinely curious or they're curious about service dogs and I'm not busy and I have time to answer questions, I will explain a little bit about what he does. But when customers are rude, confrontational, or I am very busy, I don't do that. I don't have the time. And I find that the harsher answer of he keeps me alive or speaking to my service dog, if he misses an alert, I could die because I could hit my head here, or if he doesn't notice me passing out or getting dizzy, I could fall, and it can be very dangerous for me. Tends to make people back off faster. But the lady continues to question me, and my manager's standing there as I'm trying to do my job and help another customer. This lady isn't buying anything. Her husband's transaction is now complete. He's waiting on her, and my manager's just standing there watching this. I don't understand why there is no protection in place, no training in place to teach any staff how to support its fellow staff members when they're disabled or facing a confrontational customer. Especially in this case, when it's a pharmacy, they're all about protected information. They should know better than to let someone rail on me about what's wrong with me. But apparently they don't, and they find it perfectly acceptable to sit there and stare as I am harassed. And if something had happened, if she had taken it further, or if she had refused to leave, and we had had to call the cops, it would be likely that the store manager, the general manager, would have told me that he is now too much of a distraction and must not come back. Despite the fact that since he has started working with me, I haven't missed a day of work. I've been late a few times, because that happens, but I've been able to call in and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is when I will be available to be there. And I've never been more than an hour late for my shift since having him begin working with me. Which is a big deal because my store has a really huge attendance problem. And I mean, when I was missing work, one time I actually walked in with my face busted, I still have a scar on my forehead, to my manager, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I was walking to work. I was walking here because that's what I have to do. And I passed out. The dog wasn't there. I didn't know. I passed out. I hit my head. I think I need to go to the hospital. And even then, like immediately following that, the next day, I was explained the attendance policy again and what repercussions would happen if I missed one more day. And I mean, it's for a company that is trying to say that it's very supportive of all of its people, that they're invested in the health of their customers and their employees. This seems like a very unfair practice and a very unfair policy. And I'm sure my store's not the only one. In fact, my store's probably one of the better ones because they let me have a service dog in the first place. They could have fought it, we could have gone to court over it. Not that I could afford that, which was the big fears, that they would essentially try to take it to court just on the sheer fact that they know what my salary is. But putting the liability of the entire public and their reactions on my shoulders, it's not fair, it's not right, it's not ethical. Hi, this has been a rant at almost 4 a.m. because even though I'm on drugs that are supposed to put people out for surgery, I still can't sleep. Probably because of what happened on my last shift. I'm stressed out about it. I live in this town. I see these people every day. It's a small town. I run into these people over and over again. And they know who I am because I'm very easily recognizable. It's just, this has been a TED Talk on why it's not fair.